Hey, this is Rob Swanson with the Real Estate Mogul Show. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Rob Swanson back here with another episode of the Real Estate Mogul Show. We've got a good one today. We're going to be diving into the second half of the One Call Close script. And we're going to be talking about how you can get on the phone with a seller and turn them from an interested seller into a motivated seller and into an accepted offer. And I should back that up. You're really not turning anybody into a motivated seller, but what you've got to first do is uncover whether you're dealing with an interested seller, find the why behind their interest in selling. That will lead you to uncovering their motivations, which sets you up to have a conversation that solves their problem. So, wow. Sales Masterclass 101 right there. 201, 301, 401. That's probably a 401 level right there. So, guys, we're going to dive into this. And if you haven't listened to the last episode, start there. Because we started with the script and we broke it all down literally from the introduction. And we talked a lot about if you're cold calling, prospecting, or calling leads back, doing follow-up, or even just taking a live answer off of someone that received your marketing and is responding. I'm telling you, that first setup, the intro 1 and intro 2 that we dove deep into last time, will be the break or make deal between you getting a deal or not.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, the result that somebody can get going from struggling on a phone call to actually looping and leading that person, which you talked about in great detail, is going to be the difference between accepted offers and closed deals. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's the difference between a struggling real estate investor and a successful real estate investor. And it's the difference between a successful real estate investor and a wildly successful real estate investor. At first, you've got to go from just understanding the basics and beginning to execute around it, right? And then you're going to begin to master the basics, and the basics become advanced strategies, and you start to hear the conversation differently, and you start to recognize where you can take a conversation to solve a seller's pain in such a way that allows you to buy the real estate. And that's the magical key to this thing. And so in the last episode, we left off at the upfront contract, and I can tell you, if you are not doing that in your conversations with sellers, you're probably getting to the end of the conversation, and there's a phrase a lot of times that we throw around: you got spouse carded. And so you might be talking to the person who says they're the decision maker. You follow the process, but then you don't get an upfront contract. You get to the very end, and they got to go check with their spouse, their significant other, their wife, their husband. And you got spouse carded in the end because you didn't do the work up front. And a lot of times people even did the work of the decision maker. Am I talking to the right person? Am I talking to the person that makes the decisions? And you might have even thought you did that correctly. If you don't get the upfront contract piece of this conversation and do it right and do it every single time, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot later on. And so the later on is what we're going to be talking about in this particular show. It's the later on part of the conversation. Now, these conversations, one of the KPI metrics that we measure for an acquisitions person delivering this one call close script is the number of 30-minute conversations you have in a week. So that's one of the measures of, is the acquisitions team following the script? And are they following the script well? Because if they follow the script well, they should have a high number of near 30-minute conversations on a regular weekly basis. because the script will get you into the conversation and it will take you through the process of discovery. And so, Mike, you talk to people every day.
I do.
What do you think? And you know, we're part 2, but I think it's relevant to just kind of rehash a little bit of this.
Yep.
Where do people get lost in the script, and why do you think people get lost in the script?
So I'm going to answer it in 2 ways. First off, I talk to people frequently that aren't using a script, and they're flat out leaving money on the table, period,
Yep.
end of story.
Yep.
You are walking down a sidewalk with way more paydays than you're stopping to pick up. So, Rob, you just said something really key, that we're tracking the number of 30-minute or extended conversations. The mindset that I've come across that I would say is more prevalent with investors is, I get a person on the phone, I've got to talk about the real estate as quickly as possible, make them an offer and move to the next one.
Yep.
And they're leaving money on the table.
Yep.
Every time.
Yep.
And, you know, they come with these impressive numbers, and I think I mentioned this last episode, but it's worth saying again. And, we're making $5,000 a day, and we're doing this, that, and the other, and we're having all these conversations. And, I remember you saying years ago, hey, great, bring your 5,000 daily calls and give me, a salesperson that's willing to spend some time on the phone, and let's compare numbers in 90 days.
That's right.
Because you know that building trust, building rapport, getting to know somebody, identifying the why, identifying the motivation, and discussing it is how you turn interested sellers into motivated sellers, which is, we covered this in the last one, it's the large majority, we call them yellow lights. It's the large majority of sellers that you're going to talk to.
That's right.
So that's the first point. Majority of people aren't doing it.
Yeah.
The second thing, because we provide the script on all of our coaching platforms, and here's what happens, and you know this, when somebody doesn't know what to say to a seller, you hand them a script and they say, literally, thank God I have this.
That's right.
This is going to guide my conversation. But then 3 conversations in, 5, 10 conversations in, they have this mindset shift that goes, I don't need the script anymore. I got this.
Yeah.
And here's what I tell people. That's the day you start making less money than you should be.
Right.
Because you feel like, I just needed the script to get comfortable on the phone. That's not it. I tell people, and I tell them when I train on this, I just flat out tell them, the first thing I say in the training is, my job is to sell you on using the script. Every phone call, every seller, every time.
Yeah.
And so they get comfortable. So I'll wrap up my point. They get comfortable and they decide, I don't need the script.
Yep.
And they miss the nuance in it.
Yeah.
They forget to do the upfront contract. They don't, they don't drive home some of these points, because the script is a psychological guide to an effective conversation. It's got tons of little nuance in it.
That's right.
That people miss.
And here's the thing I always say, pros use scripts. Like,
that's right.
I've had thousands of conversations with sellers over the years. Thousands. And I still use a script. And I can deliver that script from memory. So if I took a call, if I've got FreedomSoft, I've got a call automation set up, and my phone, my iPhone app rings, and I answer it, and I'm not anywhere near my script, I can deliver the script because I've done it so often. But if I'm sitting at my desk, if I'm doing the action and activity of acquisitions, guess what I've got up? Guess what I've got in front of me? I've got the script. Because even though I know it inside and out and can deliver it blindfolded, right, from memory, I still perform better if I put it in front of me. I probably perform just fine without it. But I always feel that little bit of betterness. Is that a word? Betterness?
It is now.
Yeah, I feel the little bit of betterness if I've got that script up and in front of me.
Yep.
And so it's such an important thing. So let's dive into this, because we got to the place of the upfront contract in part 1. And from the upfront contract, which is essentially saying this, I'll just set it up. It's basically saying, Mr. Seller, Miss Seller, Mrs. Seller, if we can agree on a price today, and that price solves the problem that we just talked about, or we're about to talk about, if it solves, if it accomplishes your goal, is there any reason you wouldn't sell me the house today? That's the upfront contract. And we dove deeper into that into part 1. Go listen to it. Because from there, you're going to move into now your job is to begin to uncover the pain and what is making this particular seller, number one, an interested seller, and number two, a potentially motivated seller. And here's what happens. If you follow the script correctly and you're in this box, which on my screen, I have it in front of me. I've got my process map here. I've got a box. It's 1.B.6, and it's called pain. And I've gone through the process of building some rapport, having an initial conversation. I know I'm talking to the right person. We like each other. Conversation is flowing well. I've got the upfront contract, and I'm going to get into the pain. I've still not talked about the real estate. I still haven't talked about, is it a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, 1 bath or 2 bath, attached garage, no garage? You know, what's the condition? I haven't gotten into any of the real estate, and I'm easily 10 minutes into a conversation. And the first thing that I have to do is I have to get into the pain conversation. And I think of pain in 2 primary categories. And I learned this from one of my early mentors, Todd, years ago, like when I first got into this business. One of the things he taught me was that pain shows up in 2 ways. It shows up in the form of a problem property, and it shows up in the form of a problem person, or people problems or property problems. And so the pain is either the condition of the property, or dealing with code violations, or the tenants are a nightmare, or there's something related to the property itself, or it's a people thing, and people problems tend to show up in financial ways. And a people problem is maybe I got a job transfer and now I'm making two mortgage payments, or my tenants moved out and now I'm making payments on my rental property that the tenants had been paying, but I now need to fix it up. So there's a property problem, and it's costing me extra money, outgoing cash flow every month to service the debt. And there's a people financial problem. And so what your job is in the pain box is to figure out, why are you interested in selling? And what you'll find is that sometimes, and here's a 401, 501 little sales tip that you're going to be able to recognize if you follow this script and follow this flow. You might say, hey, Mike, listen, let me just ask you, I guess, it's not a bad little house in a good little neighborhood. Why are you interested in selling? And that's how I'd kind of say it. And because I'm not trying to say, man, this thing, I'm going to say later that you should really solve your problem by selling the house. But right now, I'm not trying to say you need to sell me your house, because we're not there yet. And so people try to push the sale too early in the conversation and too early in the script, and they push the seller away from them rather than drawing the seller in. So in this pain box, I'm not trying to yet necessarily use the pain to say, Mike, sell me the house. What I'm trying to do is to use the pain, number one, find out what the pain is, and number two, can we talk about that pain? Like, how is it making you feel? Like, what's going on? So I'm going to ask that question. So Mike, let me ask you this. It's a decent little house in a good little neighborhood. Why are you interested in selling? And common things that you're going to say to me are, the 8 Ds of distress, right? And we can break these down, and I'm going to go off of memory, but
There's a great, just so you know, there's a great training and podcast episode on this on
Yeah.
the YouTube channel. So if people want to dive into those 8Ds really in detail, there's a wonderful episode, back on the YouTube channel. So just go to that at Real Rob Swanson YouTube and dive in.
Yeah, I think that was our producer trying to suggest don't go down the 8Ds rabbit hole right now. That might have been what's going on.
sounded
I
like
love it. Go down that go down that rabbit hole because it's so beneficial. I just want people to know that there are other resources because you're not going to get into the detail that you did in that episode.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But it's like it's damage and distress and divorce and double payments and disagreements and delinquency and that's 6. Distance, and there's one more. That's 7. Come on, Snyder, what is it?
Yeah, I know. I'm having a brain cramp.
Anyway, so those are the kind of things that you're going to uncover in the pain box when you're asking the question about pain. Why are you interested in selling? And here's a sidebar. And this is the 501 tip I was going to give you a couple moments ago. And some of you are like, wait a minute. He started to say that he was going to give me a 501 tip. And then he went down a rabbit trail. And then he got interrupted by the producer. And then, I'm circling back. I'm going to give you this 501 tip. Here's what it is. When you ask that question, Mike, why are you interested in selling? Mike says, you know what? I don't really want to sell, but I'm kind of sick of dealing with the tenants. To be honest with you, I really liked owning the property. I really liked the cash flow that came off of the property. It wasn't a bad little house. I'm just busy in other things in life, and I just don't have the time or the desire to want to deal with it right now. He said he liked it. He said he didn't mind it. He would keep it. He doesn't need the money, and he said he liked the cash flow. Friends, listen for those types of statements because that is your cue to queue up a terms offer, right? That's how you get a seller to sell you a house with owner finance or cash flow payment terms. Listen for those little nuances, but you'll never figure out those little nuances if you don't follow the flow of the script. Mike, how many times do you see when we coach people or work with people in their business, they miss what we see as an obvious structure to a deal and an obvious solution that could make everybody money, solve the seller's pain, make the real estate wholesaler or investor, the acquisitions person money, and turn a property back into a producing, quality, fixed-up house in a neighborhood. How many times do you see people miss these little nuances because they don't follow the boxes?
Yeah, I've seen it multiple times frequently, and one of them came back from an email. Actually, it was a little kind of a sidebar comment. And so we had a student looking to sell a property at a certain price. That's normal. That's called dispositions. And the potential buyer came back via email. That's how this particular communication went down and said, it won't work because of this and the fix up and this, and this. But they had looked up the property in public records, and there was an end little sentence that said, but if I could pick it up for what the current owner bought it for back in 2019, it would probably work. And so it was interesting because I was working with this student, a newer investor, and we were going through this. And I said, send me this email. And she sent it over. And in her mind, right, this buyer wasn't interested. In my mind, this buyer was interested. We just weren't at the right price yet.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it happens verbally. It happens via, could be via text, could be via email. But it's oftentimes, to your point, it's oftentimes the little nuanced things that get said that really give you the clue as to what's going on with the seller and what's happening in their mind.
You were just talking about the buyer's perspective, right? The buyer said, I'm not interested at the price.
But it was still a nuanced. You were talking seller, and it was listening for those little cues that we have to key on.
Yes.
Yep.
So whether you're in the acquisition script or you're in a dispositions mode, It's
Yep.
listening for the little things or looking for the little things in an email that someone says that gives you the clue and the insight into, well, how do we take this deal across the finish line?
And Rob, here's why the script helps and why you need it in front of you. When the script is in front of you, you don't have to think about what to say next.
Right.
If I don't have to worry or think about what to say next, I can be engaged in the conversation and I can pick up on the nuance. If my brain is simultaneously trying to listen to the seller and trying to formulate in my head what's going to come out of my mouth next, I'm not picking up on the nuance because I'm trying to do two things at the same time,
Yep.
and I'm doing neither of them well.
That's right.
And so the script puts your mind at ease, saying, I'm just going to basically follow this order and read it.
Right.
I tell people, practice this so it doesn't sound like you're reading it. Get a seller on the phone and then read it.
Yeah.
Literally, right?
Totally.
Read it.
Totally.
You just read it in a conversational manner. But
That's
then, anyway, to my point, when you have the script, you're not worried about what to say next. You're engaged. You're picking up on the nuance. That makes all the difference.
Huge. We could sit and marinate around the pain box and the why box for hours and talk about this. And we could talk about framing, and we could talk about conversation structure, and we could talk about the nuance that you're looking for, and little one-liners and things you can say that take you in different directions based on uncovering the seller's why. This is probably the most important box that actually gets you to your offer and to a solution. When I'm talking about box, I'm looking at the process map, and it's a process flow. So each box is a step in the flow of this conversation and of this script. And the pain box is the deep uncovering of a seller's why. It allows you to determine whether you have an interested seller that is yellow light, and it shows you the conversation and the things you need to push on, and the things you need to talk about, and the things you need to point out to them, because sometimes the seller just doesn't know what they don't know. And if you point it out to them because you've uncovered why they're interested in selling and what their pain is, they begin to think about it, and all of a sudden they go from, I'm interested in selling, to, you know what, I do have this pain, and the pain that you just pointed out to me is even greater than the pain I'm already experiencing, and I don't want that. So they move from an interested seller into a motivated seller. We talked about it in part one, that you've got red light, yellow light, and green light sellers. And the magic is taking a yellow light seller, someone in the middle, an interested seller, and turning them into a green light, which is selling you based on some motivation that you've uncovered. The red lights are never going to sell to you. The green lights are going to sell to you because you're making them an offer. The yellow lights is where all the money is made, right? You can get a nice little side hustle with green lights. You can save a lot of time by learning how to recognize red lights. The money is made in the yellow lights, and moving somebody because of the script and the conversation you have from yellow to green. That's the magic.
That's right. Let me say something real quick. Never assume as you go through the pain, a rookie mistake would be, oh, the seller already knows everything about this property and how painful it is. Nope. There's a unique part of the human experience that's common that people say, hey,
Yep.
That's a painful topic in my life. I'm going to squash it. I don't want to think about it. They get a bill every month for the utilities and they pay them, but they're like, I don't want to deal with that. And Rob, you know this as well as anybody. Real estate is oftentimes tied to emotion.
Yep.
Somebody in my family died and I have this house. That's painful to think about.
Yep.
I tried to do my first fix and flip. It didn't go well. I lost a bunch of money. That's painful to think about. I had great tenants. Then all of a sudden I didn't because they got transferred. Now I've gone through 3 or 4 or 5, lousy tenants who keep beating this place up, and I'm sick and tired of fixing it. It's emotional.
Yep.
And it's painful. So don't ever assume that people understand exactly how financially and emotionally painful the house is, because a lot of times they've been dealing with this pain. It was painful 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They've been suppressing it. I don't want to think about that.
Yep.
And they've just been going through the motions. And then you're going to, through the script, you're not going to hit them with a 2x4, but you're going to gently start to bring these things up and say, hey, let's talk about a real solution here.
Yep. Yeah, I was looking here. I wanted to pull up a document, another little flow chart that I use, and I wanted to pull this up, and I'm not finding it in my Google Drive search here real quick, but I'll be able to describe it. And it's as we move from the pain box into the equity box. So the next thing is, okay, we've figured out the pain. And we've kind of dove into that. We've dug a little deep. We understand the why, and we have a sense of where we're going. The next thing is we're going to go towards the equity box. And what we've got to figure out is, what is the seller's perception of the value of the property? What does the seller owe on the property? And there's a delta there. And that delta, the difference between what it's worth fixed up and what they owe, is the after repaired equity. Now, to get to the after repaired equity, it comes down to purchase price plus repairs. Those two things combined, plus all of your other holding and operating costs. Purchase price plus repairs plus cost is your all-in number, and then up to what's it worth. That's your true equity. So you've got to figure out, is there equity here to begin with? And in the exploration of equity, this is the problem that most people have. They explore equity and they come up with what their perceived equity is. Okay, this is what the house is worth fixed up. Here's how much repairs it needs, and here's what the seller owes. And they, based on what the seller owes, they determine that a certain offer will or will not work. And that's a mistake. So I'm going to say two things. What the seller wants and what the seller owes is irrelevant to your analysis of what you can pay. Now, that is for a cash offer, or a financed, an offer that is made cash or contingent on financing. Okay, if you're going to give the seller a price that they accept, and you're going to give them all the cash up front, you're typically going to buy at a significant discount with all cash up front. The other side of that is a terms offer. And so in the equity box, you're trying to figure out, and you're evaluating, where do I have to take this? And the mistake, again, that people make is they take what the seller wants and what the seller owes, and they take a cash offer off the table sometimes because what the seller wants is too high, or what the seller owes is too high. So they take a cash offer off the table. The reality is, sometimes a seller will actually come to the table at closing with cash to get out. I'll give you a perfect example of why this would happen. And this is a house that we flipped and made some decent money on. The seller, my acquisitions guy, and the seller were having a conversation. And it turns out, through the pain portion of the conversation, that the seller was about to stroke a check for $6,000 or $7,000 to a contractor to paint the house, replace the carpets, and do some other miscellaneous work just to get it fixed up enough after the tenants had moved out to sell. And we got on the phone and we were following the script, and we got to the pain. And you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to go spend the summer on the lake in Alabama with his family, or in Arkansas with his family, and not deal with this house. And yet he was going to stroke a $7,000 check, and he was going to have to manage the contractor and manage the rehab, and then manage the listing and manage the sales process. And he didn't want to have to deal with all of that. And so what he owed and what he wanted, or what he owed and what we could pay, was kind of close. Like the maximum allowable offer and what he owed on the property was pretty tight. And it wasn't really going to leave a lot of room for us to make an offer below wholesale so that we could flip it to a local investor that could make a profit. And so because of following the script and because I have pounded into their heads, my acquisitions team heads, that just because what the seller wants or what the seller owes doesn't look like it's going to work, make the offer anyway. Hey friends, Rob Swanson here. Let me jump in and talk to you really quick about the Real Estate Mogul Academy. You might be sitting back listening to this and saying, how do I get in proximity with these guys? How do I have these kind of conversations, water cooler, hallway conversations every single day to help me go where I want to go in my real estate investing business? Whether you're just getting started or you're already a seasoned pro trying to elevate and go to that next step, the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be for you. What we'd like to do is offer you a free strategy session where someone from my team will jump on the phone. We'll talk about where you are, where you want to go, and how the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be the right fit for you. If you're saying to yourself, that sounds great, let's do it, go to mogulmembers.com, fill out your name and your contact information, and let's jump on the phone and let's chat. Let's see if we can help you go where you want to go this year. So we ended up making an offer about $6,000 below what the seller owed. And that worked. Like, that was kind of the right math. I mean, we flipped this house and made more than a couple of nickels flipping it. So we made good money on this deal. But we made the offer that we knew we had to be at in order to make the deal work. And you know what happened? We made the offer below what the seller owed, and this was the seller's response. You know, I'm going to stroke a $6,000 or $7,000 check one way or the other, either to a contractor or to you. If I stroke the check to you, I don't have to deal with all of the stuff that I'd have to deal with if I stroke it to the contractor. Yeah, that's right. So, John, does the offer work for you? What do you think he said? Yeah, I think that works for me. He goes, I'm going to write a check one way or another. It might as well be to you. It was such a good experience for my acquisitions guy to go through that and to hear the seller's response, because in his head, he almost didn't make the offer. But I'd beat it into him so hard that he made it anyway. And then when he heard the seller's logic and analysis process, he's like, oh, I guess that does make sense. But we get pigeonholed sometimes, and we think, somebody's not going to write a check at the closing table to get out of to sell a property. Well, if you're fixing a house up, if you're fixing a property up, you're writing checks anyway. So you might as well just buy back your time and write the check to the guy that's going to buy it and let him deal with everything, right?
Stop thinking for the seller.
Yeah.
Right?
Do the thing that we know to do, which takes us to the next box, which is the offer.
I just want to say it's amazing how many times investors talk themselves out of a deal, and that's
Huge.
not anything near what the seller is thinking.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So we get to the box that's called offer. And on the box that's called offer, here's where people freak out. They're like, Rob, how can I do a one-call close when I don't know all the math and I don't know all the numbers and I'm not so fast on running the calculator? Like, I'm not comfortable with what my offer is. Well, guess what? You might screw one up. You might screw two up. You might screw 9 up like Henry did, right? He's not here to defend himself. But he learned through the process, no harm, no foul, and he made the offer. So you got to look at the comps. You got to look at the repair costs. And if you have a calculator, if you have a process that you go through, use that calculator fast and while you're on the phone. Punch in a calculator. Punch in a couple of the numbers that you're going to get through the process, and the calculator will spit out your offer, and it will analyze what kind of a deal you're dealing with. And, we've got a little acquisitions calculator that actually tells you Is it a fix and flip deal? Is it a buy and hold deal? Is it a wholesale? Should we close? Is it so good that we should just close on it, take it down ourselves, and fix and flip or buy and hold? Like, we've got a calculator that analyzes this for us, so that Mike, you, me, or the acquisitions team can pop that up while they're talking to the seller. You know, we're into a 20-minute some conversation at this point. There's been plenty of time to figure out. So Mr. Seller, you had the house rented, tenants moved out recently? Okay, yeah, gotcha. Well, what was it rented for? I was rented for $1,300 a month. Boom, right into the calculator, $1,300. You don't have to think about it. You just got the number. You plugged in the number into the box, and the calculator's there doing the thinking and the math for you. You don't have to say, okay, 1,300 minus operating costs, about 30%, TIM V, taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, vacancy. Okay, divided by, right? You don't have to do all of that, right? If your brain has the mental fortitude to do that quickly, and you can just pull out your calculator and boom, 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 run the math, do that. But if what you need to do is build yourself a little tool to make punching in the numbers easy, spend your time doing that. So as I look at our offer box here, it's the comps. And there are two types of comps, right? The comps are both the retail resale comps as well as the rental comps. And what I was going to pull up that I was trying to search for in my Google Drive, and I couldn't find it just because I'm thinking about talking on the podcast rather than searching, is the process of evaluating what type of an exit strategy are we dealing with on this house. And it starts by looking at the comps. And the comps, Mike, we've talked about this so much. The comps tell you what the exit strategy is. Yep. And I think we had a big conversation about this in part one. I'm going to rehash it here because this is kind of where it comes into the script piece. And I won't go deep down the rabbit trail, but if you look at a subject house, a house that you're talking to a seller about, and you pull up the comps in FreedomSoft, you're literally on the lead record, you've got the address typed in, you click the button that says property snapshot, and all of the data pops up in front of you. It's right there. You scroll down a little bit, and there's the comps. And you look at it and you say, okay, I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,300 square feet house built in 1968, and it's brick. Okay, boom. Now you know what the subject property is. You can see the picture of it right there on the property snapshot. You look at the comps and you say, oh, all of the comps are priced at about the same price. All of the comps are priced about the same price. Everything. There's not a low comp and then a high comp, and a low comp and a high comp. Everything is sort of batched together or grouped together, right? The prices are pretty close. What that tells you is that it's very likely that this is a rental-only area because people are not buying low, fixing up, and then selling high. And therefore, if you bought low and sold high, you'd see a spread on your comps. If you see a tightly grouped set of price band, it's likely that that's just a rental neighborhood, a rental area. Now, if you see the low and the high, that probably suggests that you're in a fix and flip area. So the first thing I look for when I'm looking at the comps is I'm looking for whether prices are banded together or whether those bands are separated low to high. That gives me perfectly good insight to say buy and hold or fix and flip. Because, again, the fix and flip, somebody buys it low, they fix it up, and then they sell it high. And that gets put into the public records at the low price and then on the resale at the high price. But for a buy and hold investor, they buy it low, they fix it up, and maybe they refinance it. Maybe they get an appraisal, but they're not reselling it. So there's nothing in the public record that creates the low and then the high. And so when you're looking at the comps, that's the first thing that I look for. And what that tells me is if I've got a tightly banded price range, I'm going to run my rental calculator because I know that investors in that area are buying to hold. If I see the jump low to high, I'm going to run, I'm going to be thinking, and I'm going to run the fix and flip first. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to run both on every house, but what you're going to see is that don't go down an exit strategy of a fix and flip in a tightly banded comps analysis, because nobody's going to buy it on the flip. And so you want to analyze that deal as a buy and hold. And so it's a lot of fun to get good at looking at the comps in about 30 seconds and knowing exactly what's going on. And you know where that comes from? That comes from effort. It comes from doing the work and becoming a master at the task. And then the skill is the increase in your ability to that mastery level. So effort plus skill equals result, and you just got to put in the reps, right? The overnight success doesn't happen. Somebody put in the reps to learn how to do this. The reason I can look at a property snapshot in FreedomSoft and in 30 seconds understand if we're dealing with a buy and hold or a fix and flip area is because I've put in the reps to do it. Just put in the reps. Now, the other piece in the comps, in the sort of pricing analysis box here, is rent, and or is the rehab cost. And so if we assume that the after repaired value is what we're going to look for fix and flip, and we assume that the rental rate, monthly rental rate or annual rental rate, is what we're going to use to anchor our pricing for a buy and hold analysis, the next thing we've got to do is get into the rehab cost and ask, well, what's it going to cost to fix this place up? And, you know, there's multiple ways that we kind of tackle that. We ask the seller, number one, what do they think? What's it going to cost to fix the place up? And understand this, that sellers almost always are way low. Almost always are low. So number one, ask the seller. Number two, run the repair cost estimator in FreedomSoft. You can do that easily while you're on the phone with the seller, and it will kick out both a rental grade and a rehab grade repair cost estimate. And then you can check it against the thing that we call the rule of threes that says everything on your bread and butter investor rental type house is repaired based on a derivative of $3,000. So it's either $3,000, $1,500, or $6,000. And so the rule of threes. And so you can validate the repair costs based on seller's opinion, FreedomSoft's repair cost estimator, and the rule of threes very, very quickly. Now, when I teach this to my team or teach this in our coaching programs, we'll dive deeper and we'll actually take and run the math and say, well, okay, if we were going to rebuild this house, how many sheets of drywall do you think we need? How many gallons of paint do you think we need? How many square of roof do you think we need? How many windows do we need? How many, right? And we'll actually practice running the detailed math, and every single time we get to the end and we either run the rule of threes, we run the repair cost estimator, and compare to the deep analysis, which takes a lot more time and requires a lot more expertise, the numbers are the same. Or the numbers are close enough that they don't affect the price.
Yep, that's exactly it. They're close enough.
Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it.
That's it right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, the other thing here too, as a wholesaler, you don't know exactly what end buyers on the disposition side are going to do.
Yep.
To the property, and it varies greatly.
Yep.
Two legit buyers can look at the same house, and you say, buyer A, what's your fix-up budget? I'd put about 10, 12 grand into this. Great. Buyer B, what's your budget? I put probably 25, 26 grand into this house.
Yep.
Same house. So you can't control that, right?
right.
So Rob, to your point, you got to be in the ballpark.
That's right.
Yep. That's it.
Yep. All right, guys. So we went from the offer, which is comps, the repair cost estimate, and the acquisitions calculator, having a tool that you can utilize to spit out a number quickly. Well, that offer number, that thing that gets spit out, is what's going to now come out of your mouth in that offer phase, and you're going to present the offer to the seller. And you're going to say to the seller the number or the offer, and then you're going to remind them of why they're selling, what pain you're solving, and how quickly this pain can be solved. And you're going to ask them, does that work for you? And you're going to get a yes. Okay? You might get a no. If you get a no, then you got to figure out what's the objection. You've got to loop and lead this conversation, and you've got to handle the objection. There's something in your offer that's not working for the seller. Their problem is not being solved sufficiently in their mind such that they say yes to your offer. Figure out what that is. Figure out how to loop that back around, lead it back to a successful conclusion, and land on a yes. So let's assume now you get a yes. Now you're going to move into the box that is the post-close. And this is another box filled with magic. The script and the post-close is magic. Mike, how many times do we talk to either students we're coaching, people within our community, users of the FreedomSoft software that have used the built-in e-signature, sent out their documents, they look at it on FreedomSoft and they say, yep, it's been sent. Ooh, the seller has viewed it. You can see the date and time when it was viewed, but they didn't sign it. They said yes, they accepted the offer verbally, and then they don't sign the paperwork. How many times does that happen?
It happens. Yeah, it happens common because if you don't button up the post-close, and I know you're about to go into it, there's so much psychology.
That's right.
In the post-close section on how you handle this, and that's what we'll unpack here in the next few minutes, but I don't know anybody that has ever gotten 100% of the contract signed, but the post-close will drastically increase the percentage of contracts that come back with a signature.
Wild
no question.
Increase.
Yeah.
Wild increase.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like this is a broken record, but every section of the script is really, really important.
It is.
And then when you put it all together, like any one of them on their own, if you just implemented this post-close we're going to talk about,
right,
you would get more contracts signed. If you had a great introduction, you would get more contracts signed. If you did, right?
Yeah.
But when you put it all together,
yeah,
I mean, imagine that every section, when done right, is a tangible percentage increase
yep,
in deals under contract, which is a tangible increase in deals closed,
yep,
and money in your pocket. And then we talk about the entire, using the entirety of the script.
That's right.
It's we can't. There's no way to oversell this topic.
No,
it's that important.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about going and making this sort of funny analogy and comparing it to a taco, right? And you can have corn tortilla tacos, and you can have flour tortilla tacos, and then you can have, the alternative flourless or quinoa or almond flour tacos. Like, you can have all these different types of tortillas, and then you can fill your tacos with all sorts of different things, right? You can put ground beef in it. You can put steak in it. You can put chicken in it. You can put shrimp in it. You can put pork in it. You do all these different things. All of the ingredients that go into a taco, starting with, is it a fix and flip or a buy and hold? Is it a corn taco or a flour taco, right? All of the stuff that goes into the taco are the ingredients that make up the script. And if you leave out any one of the ingredients, the salsa, the hot sauce, the sour cream, the cheese, the lettuce, the pico, the whatever you're going to build your taco around, there's a desired result that you have with the taco. And if you leave out any one of those ingredients, the likelihood that you hit the desired result goes down.
Yeah, it's not as good as it should be.
Yeah,
right?
Isn't that a great analogy? Like, I thought to myself, let's go down the taco route, and then I thought, no, let's not, and then I did it anyway.
Yeah, you totally did. I like how you did. I was going to do this, and then you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, First of all, I don't appreciate this is 2 weeks in a row now. You've done food analogies prior to lunchtime.
Ooh.
So, the hunger
Yeah.
meter just pinned, but salsa's good.
Yeah.
Nobody grabs a spoon unless you're tasting it, right? Unless you're the person making it. You don't grab a bowl and a spoon and eat salsa.
Right.
It goes with a chip,
Right.
right? And so there are components. So, Rob, to your analogy, when you leave out any of them, right? Even the lettuce, which on its own is kind of bland, but lettuce on a taco
Yep.
gives it another element. And so you pull the whole thing together and it makes it
Yep.
delicious.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool. So you get into the post close, right? And you've got a verbal yes. And you don't want to get ghosted. You don't want to send the written offer and then have the seller ghost. Something went wrong between making the verbal, getting the yes acceptance, and then sending out the paperwork. Now, one thing that I can say is change your language if your language isn't changed. You're sending out paperwork. You're not sending out a contract. Because what does a contract have to be? Reviewed by an attorney. What does paperwork have to be? Processed, right? So the scary language, and this might sound semantical, but I can tell you that the mindset oftentimes of a seller is, oh, I'll sign the paperwork. Yeah, that's no problem. But if you say, well, I'm going to send you the contract, they say, okay, send it over. I'll have my lawyer look at it. But if you're just sending the paperwork, they're going to move forward. So in the post-close, we have there's multiple steps of the post-close. One of the most important that I want us to talk about and just sort of lay on the line for people is what we call the two-condition close. And so when you're making your offer and you're setting up the post-close, so sort of between and as part of making the offer and moving into the post-close, there's the two-condition close. The two-condition close sets up the post-close. And in the post-close, you're going to handle any objections. And the way you're going to handle objections in the post-close is you're going to reference back to the boxes and the things that you did earlier in the conversation. The decision maker, the upfront agreement, the upfront contract, the pain, the why, the conversation about value, the conversation about condition. You're going to reference back to all of these things that you've done to build the foundation and the groundwork for the offer. And when you make the offer, what we like to do is what's called a two-condition close. Hey, Mike, I can do $112,000 today based on two things. Okay? Now, everybody wants to know what the two things are. And on today's show, I'm going to tell you. Number one.
Cliffhanger.
Oh, man. I had some people that were like, no, you got to tell me. I'm going to. We're going to talk about it. Between the offer and the post-close, you use the two-condition close. And the two conditions are set up in the script specifically in a way that lands them to be received well by the seller. And this is the important piece. I'm going to give you what the two conditions are. Number one, the condition is that, Mike, I have the ability to get into the property in the next day to verify everything we've talked about. Mike, you don't have a problem with that, right?
I do not.
Okay, so offer condition number one, I've got to be able to get access to the property. So that's a greasy, easy yes. Yep, no problem. I can do that. Number two, I need to get the paperwork signed today. Two conditions. Number one, I get access. That condition is framed first because you want to get the yes. You want to get the yeses flowing. Okay? I get access. Yes, no problem. Great. Number two, and we have a way in the script how we frame access, how we frame all of this stuff. So it's, here's condition one, here's condition two. How you deliver it matters. How you say it, the words you flow through. Now you can bring your own personality, but if you say it and deliver it well, it lands, and you're going to get into the post-close and you're not going to get ghosted. So condition one, access. Condition two, I need the paperwork signed today. Do you have any problem with that? People are more likely to follow through on the specific things you ask them to do than the thing you assume they will do. So if you ask them, I need the paperwork signed today, and then you follow the script and you tighten that up and you nail down the seller to, okay, so I'm going to send you the paperwork in the next 10 or 12 minutes. You're there by your computer right now. So in about the next 15 or 20 minutes, you'll have a chance to look through our very simple one-page agreement and sign the paperwork. Yep, no problem. Nail them down. Then you move into the post-close, and you are less likely to get ghosted because you're tying the seller down. You're getting them to say they're going to do something. And most people, not all, but most people will do what you tie them down to saying they're going to do. If you don't tie them down, they're going to do whatever they want to do. And they're going to get to it whenever they want. But if they've agreed with you that they will do something in a certain period of time, the likelihood that they will follow through with that goes up significantly. So really, really powerful process in the script to avoid the ghosting seller. And then the post-close is going through the process again of sort of tying this thing down in a bow, making sure the seller knows what's about to happen, what the flow is going to be, what the timing is going to be, that we're going to send the paperwork over and get everything started with the title company or the attorney's office to schedule closing. You're doing all of the post-yes work to take the edge and off the seller and give them comfort and ease, because they've just made a decision that to you might seem inconsequential and simple, to them might feel like a big deal. And so what you've got to do is you've got to now help them not end up with seller's remorse and not second guessing, did I make the right decision? You've got to be that participant in the conversation that is lending now sage or confidence-led conversation into the next steps. And that is, let's get this thing across the finish line and get it closed. So that kind of rounds out the one call close, guys. And I tell you what, if you follow this process and if you go back and you take notes on part one and part two and really lean in and take seriously the flow we've talked about, and then if you either use our scripts or build your scripts around this flow and really stick to following a script, the conversion rate that you see on your deals, or on your leads and interested sellers to yes to your offers will go up significantly. There's a reason that back in the day, I used to always be the guy that was sent out to go meet with or talk with a seller because I always came back with signed paperwork. I always came back with signed paperwork. Maybe not every time. I always came back with signed paperwork. Why? Because I would marinate. You know, what makes the best tacos? Meat that's marinated. I would marinate in the pain with the seller and figure out why, so that I could use that pain to solve their problem and get a yes on my offer. It was slow sometimes. It took time sometimes. I had to marinate there sometimes. But I'm telling you, friends, if you get to the point where you'll slow down and do that, you too will win the game of making offers and getting them accepted. I think with that, guys, we're going to wrap this one up and put a nice little bow on the One Call Close, part 1, part 2. Man, these last 2 episodes have been a master class in sales and acquisitions. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I'm going to just wrap it up with saying this. It's impossible to oversell this topic. It's impossible. You have the ability with, take, any lead flow in any real estate investor's business and keep that lead flow the same over the next 6 to 12 months, but get increasingly or substantially better at talking to sellers.
Yep.
And you'll pull way more money, way more closed transactions out of the same amount of deal flow. No question about it.
And I want to wrap us with this final statement. You don't have to be a sales pro. Like, your full-time job does not have to be sales to follow the script and just talk to people. The script, the flow, the process is so dialed in. If you just say the words that come through the script, the flow and the process does the selling psychology for you if you will follow the script. You don't even have to know what it's doing. You just have to follow the flow. And so you can be an engineer like me. You can be an accountant. You can be an introvert with the willingness to get on the phone and just talk to somebody. You do not have to be a master sales psychology persuasion expert. All you got to do is understand the basics of human pain and problem solving, and that you're going to solve this with the process of buying real estate. Follow the flow, follow the boxes, follow the script, and you can win. So I want to leave you with that, because I think it's really important that people understand that anybody can do this. And there's a process that allows anybody to step in and do it if they're willing to put in the effort and increase their skill to a sufficient level to produce the results they want. Guys, this is Rob Swanson for the whole crew here. Another one, Real Estate Mogul Show in the bank. We'll see ya. Hey friends, Rob Swanson here. Let me jump in and talk to you really quick about the Real Estate Mogul Academy. You might be sitting back listening to this and saying, how do I get in proximity with these guys? How do I have these kind of conversations, water cooler, hallway conversations every single day to help me go where I want to go in my real estate investing business? Whether you're just getting started or you're already a seasoned pro trying to elevate and go to that next step, the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be for you. What we'd like to do is offer you a free strategy session where someone from my team will jump on the phone. We'll talk about where you are, where you want to go, and how the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be the right fit for you. If you're saying to yourself, that sounds great, let's do it, go to mogulmembers.com, fill out your name and your contact information, and let's jump on the phone and let's chat. Let's see if we can help you go where you want to go this year.